He was the undisputed king of the city, a man whose whisper could level buildings and whose anger could end bloodlines. Gabriel Rossi thought he owned everything in the room, including the terrified waitress trembling before him. He thought she was just a thief who had stolen his diamond watch. He thought he was teaching her a lesson in respect. But when his hand connected with her cheek, silencing the entire restaurant, he didn't realize he had just signed his own death warrant. Because the girl in the apron wasn't just a nobody. She was the only daughter of the one man even the devil feared, and she was about to make a phone call that would bring the city to its knees. The Sapphire Lounge, Waitress, was the kind of place where the air conditioning smelled like expensive perfume, and the silence was heavy with secrets. It was a fortress of glass and velvet, located on the 45th floor of the city's tallest skyscraper, a playground for the untouchables. For Haley, it was just a job that paid for her small studio apartment and the art classes she took during the day. She kept her head down, her dark hair pulled back in a tight, sensible bun, and her uniform pressed to perfection. She had mastered the art of being invisible. In a room full of politicians, tech moguls, and crime lords trying to look like businessmen, the best thing a waitress could be was furniture. Table 4 needs a refill on the scotch. The 50-year-old bottle, the floor manager, a nervous man named Mr. Henderson, hissed into Haley's ear. And for God's sake, don't look him in the eye. He's in a mood tonight. Haley didn't have to ask who he was. The temperature in the room always seemed to drop 5 degrees when Gabriel Rossi walked in. Gabriel was 32, handsome in a way that was almost predatory, and wealthier than most small countries. He wasn't just a businessman. He was the head of the Rossi Syndicate, the organization that effectively ran the port, the unions, and the underground gambling rings. He wore tailored Italian suits that cost more than Haley's entire year of tuition, and he moved with the lethal grace of a panther stalking a wounded deer. Tonight, he was seated at the best table by the window, overlooking the glittering skyline. He was accompanied by 2 of his lieutenants and a woman in a red dress who looked terrified to be there. Haley took a deep breath, adjusted the tray in her hand, and approached the table. "Your scotch, sir," she said softly, placing the crystal glass down on a coaster with practiced precision. Gabriel didn't acknowledge her. He was busy staring at his phone, his jaw clenched. "I told you," he snapped at one of his lieutenants, a scarred man named Luca. "If the shipment isn't at the docks by midnight, heads are going to roll, literally." The lieutenant swallowed hard. "It's the traffic, boss. The police have a blockade. I don't pay you to tell me about traffic." Gabriel slammed his hand on the table, making the silverware rattle. Haley flinched, but kept her composure. She reached out to pour water for the woman in the red dress, her movements efficient and quiet. "Excuse me," Gabriel said, his voice dropping to a dangerous baritone. He finally turned his gaze toward Haley. His eyes were the color of ice, cold and unforgiving. "Did I tell you to pour?" Haley froze. I apologize, sir. I just thought—" "You're not paid to think," Gabriel sneered. He looked her up and down with open disdain. "You're paid to serve and disappear. Do you know how much this suit costs? If you spill a single drop, you'll be working for the rest of your life to pay for a button." "I'm sorry, Mr. Rossi," Haley murmured, lowering her eyes. "It won't happen again." "Get out of my sight." He dismissed her with a wave of his hand, displaying the heavy platinum watch on his wrist, a rare Patek Philippe encrusted with diamonds, a custom piece worth over $500,000. Haley retreated quickly, her heart hammering against her ribs. She hated men like him, bullies wrapped in silk, men who thought power gave them the right to treat people like dirt. But she needed this job. She had promised herself she would do this on her own, without help from him, without using the name that opened every door and closed every coffin in the underworld. She went back to the service station, trying to steady her shaking hands. "Rough night?" whispered Clara, another waitress. "Just Rossi being Rossi," Haley sighed, wiping down a tray. "He acts like he owns the world." "Honey, he practically does," Clara warned. "Be careful around him. I heard a rumor that last week a valet scratched his Ferrari. No one has seen the kid since." Hayley felt a chill run down her spine. She knew the stories were likely true, but she also knew something Gabriel Rossi didn't. There were predators, and then there were monsters, and Gabriel had no idea he was yelling at the daughter of the biggest monster of them all. An hour passed. The restaurant began to clear out, leaving only the die-hard drinkers and the serious deal-makers. Hayley was assigned to clear table 4, while Gabriel and his entourage went to the private balcony to smoke cigars. She worked quickly, stacking plates and wiping crumbs. She wanted to get this shift over with. She picked up the napkins, the empty glasses, and checked under the table for any dropped silverware. It was clean. She moved to the kitchen, dumped the dishes, and began her closing tasks. 10 minutes later, the double doors of the kitchen burst open. The silence of the kitchen was shattered by the heavy, aggressive footsteps of expensive leather shoes. Mr. Henderson ran in, pale as a sheet, followed closely by Gabriel Rossi. Gabriel looked murderous. His jacket was off, his sleeves rolled up, and his face was twisted in a snarl of pure rage. "Where is she?" Gabriel roared, his voice echoing off the stainless steel appliances. The chefs froze. The dishwashers stopped scrubbing. Every eye turned to Hayley, who was standing by the coffee machine. "Mr. Rossi, please," Mr. Henderson stammered, sweating profusely. "I'm sure there's been a mistake." "Shut up!" Gabriel shoved the manager aside, sending the small man stumbling into a rack of pots. Gabriel marched straight up to Hayley. He towered over her, radiating violence. "Where is it?" he demanded, his voice low and trembling with fury. Hayley blinked, confused. "Where is what, sir?" "Don't play dumb with me, you little rat," Gabriel spat. He grabbed her wrist, his grip bruising. He held up his left arm. It was bare. The platinum watch was gone. "My watch. I took it off and set it on the table when I went to the balcony because the clasp was loose. I come back, and it's gone. You were the only one at the table." Hayley's eyes widened. "I didn't take it. I swear. I just cleared the plates. I didn't see a watch." "Liar!" Gabriel screamed, shaking her arm. "That watch is one of a kind. It's worth more than your entire bloodline. Give it to me, and maybe I'll let you walk out of here with just broken fingers." "I don't have it," Hayley cried out, trying to pull her wrist back. "Check the cameras. Check my pockets. I didn't touch it." "The cameras in the private corner were disabled for my meeting," Gabriel hissed. "You knew that, didn't you? You saw an opportunity, and you took it." "No, I didn't," Hayley insisted, fear turning into anger. "I am not a thief." "Search her," Gabriel barked to his lieutenants who had just entered the kitchen. "Strip her right here if you have to." "No," Hayley shouted, backing up against the counter. "Oh, don't you touch me." The entire kitchen staff watched in horror, but no one moved. No one dared to defy Gabriel Rossi. To interfere was suicide. Gabriel laughed, a cold, cruel sound. "You think you have rights? You think you can steal from me and play the victim?" He stepped closer, invading her personal space, his breath smelling of cognac and malice. "Last chance, where's the watch?" "I don't have it," Hayley said, enunciating every word, staring him straight in the eye with a defiance that surprised even her. For a split second, Gabriel looked shocked by her boldness. Then the shock turned into blind rage. "You insolent little trash," he growled, and then he raised his hand. The sound was sickening, a sharp, meaty crack that echoed through the tiled kitchen like a gunshot. Gabriel's hand connected with Hayley's cheek with full force. The impact knocked her head to the side and sent her stumbling back into the stainless steel counter. A tray of silverware clattered to the floor, the noise deafening in the sudden silence that followed. Hayley tasted blood. Her cheek burned as if it had been branded with a hot iron. Her ear was ringing, a high-pitched whine that drowned out the hum of the refrigerators. She gripped the counter to keep from falling, her breath catching in her throat. She wasn't crying. That was the strange part. The shock was so profound that it bypassed tears and went straight to a cold, numb clarity. The kitchen was dead silent. Mr. Henderson had his hands over his mouth. The chefs were looking down at their feet. Gabriel Rossi stood there, adjusting his cufflink, looking down at her, with a sneer of satisfaction. "Now," Gabriel said calmly, as if he hadn't just assaulted a young woman, "give me the watch, or the next one breaks your jaw." Hayley slowly turned her head back to face him. A red handprint was blossoming rapidly on her pale skin. Her hair had come loose from her bun, falling across her face. She looked at him. Really looked at him. She saw the arrogance, the cruelty, the absolute belief that he was untouchable. "You shouldn't have done that," Hayley whispered. Her voice wasn't shaking. It was flat. Dead. Gabriel raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me? You shouldn't have touched me," she said, louder this time. She reached into her apron pocket. Gabriel's bodyguards tensed, reaching for their jackets, expecting a weapon, but Hayley only pulled out a cracked, cheap smartphone. Gabriel laughed. "What are you going to do, call the police? Go ahead. I own the precinct, Captain. I own the mayor. Call them. I'll have you arrested for grand larceny before you hang up." Hayley didn't dial 911. She ignored him completely. Her fingers moved over the screen with muscle memory, dialing a number she hadn't used in 3 years, a number only 5 people in the world had. She put the phone to her ear. It rang once, twice. "Hello?" A deep, gravelly voice answered, a voice that sounded like grinding stones. Hayley took a ragged breath. "Papa?" There was a pause on the other end, a heavy, pregnant silence. Then the voice changed instantly. It went from guarded to terrified and alert. "Hayley? Little bird? Is that you? Where are you? Why are you calling this line?" "I'm at work, Papa," Hayley said, her eyes locked on Gabriel's face. "The Sapphire Lounge, downtown. Is everything okay? Are you hurt?" The voice on the other end was rising in intensity. "I need you to come get me," Hayley said, her voice finally cracking just a fraction. A man hit me, Papa. He slapped me in the face." The silence on the other end of the line was terrifying. It wasn't empty. It was the sound of a vacuum before an explosion. "Who?" The word was a whisper, but it carried more violence than Gabriel's entire existence. "His name is Gabriel Rossi," Hayley said clearly. Gabriel's eyes widened slightly at the mention of his name, but he just scoffed, crossing his arms. He thought she was calling a boyfriend, or maybe a low-level dad who would come down and get beaten up by his guards. "Stay there," her father said. "Don't move. Put him on the phone." Hayley pulled the phone away from her ear and held it out to Gabriel. "He wants to talk to you," she said. Gabriel looked at the phone with amusement. "Who is this? Your daddy? Is he going to come scold me?" "Just take the phone," Hayley said. Gabriel snatched the phone from her hand, a smirk playing on his lips. "Listen here, old man," Gabriel barked into the receiver. "Your daughter is a thief. She stole a $500,000 watch from me. I'm going to—" Gabriel stopped talking. His eyes, previously filled with mockery, suddenly went wide. His skin, already pale, turned a sickly shade of grey. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He listened for 10 seconds. Just 10 seconds. The kitchen staff watched in confusion as the arrogant, terrifying Mafia boss began to tremble. His hand holding the phone started to shake uncontrollably. Sweat beaded instantly on his forehead. "No," Gabriel stammered, his voice an octave higher. "No, sir, I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know." He listened again. He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing violently. Yes, I understand. No, please, sir, have mercy. The call ended. The other side had hung up. Gabriel slowly lowered the phone. He looked at it as if it were a bomb. Then he looked at Hayley. The look in his eyes wasn't anger anymore. It was pure, unadulterated horror. He looked like a man who had just seen a ghost. He looked like a man who knew he was already dead. He extended his hand, trembling, to give the phone back to her. He didn't toss it. He handed it to her with both hands, like an offering. "Who?" Gabriel's voice failed him. He cleared his throat. "Who are you?" Haley took the phone and slipped it back into her pocket. She touched her stinging cheek. "I'm the waitress you just slapped," she said quietly. Before Gabriel could answer, a low rumble began to vibrate through the floor of the skyscraper. It wasn't an earthquake. It was the sound of helicopters. Multiple helicopters. Moments later, the heavy thud-thud-thud of rotors grew deafeningly loud outside the panoramic windows of the dining room. Bright spotlights beamed through the glass, blinding everyone inside. Then came the sound of the elevator dings. Not one, but all 4 service elevators and the 3 guest elevators arrived at the penthouse floor simultaneously. The doors slid open. Men poured out. Dozens of them. They weren't police. They weren't Gabriel's men. They were dressed in black tactical gear, professional, silent, and heavily armed. They moved with military precision, flooding the restaurant and the kitchen within seconds. They shoved Gabriel's lieutenants to the ground before they could even reach for their guns. And then, the main elevator doors opened. A man stepped out. He was in his 60s, wearing a bespoke charcoal suit that cost more than the building they were standing in. He had silver hair swept back and a face carved from granite. He walked with a cane, but he didn't need it. He used it as a weapon. It was Alexander Thorne, the Shadow King, the man who ran the commission, the man who sat above the 5 families, the man Gabriel Rossi answered to, and the man Gabriel Rossi feared more than God himself. The kitchen staff gasped. Mr. Henderson fainted. Alexander Thorne walked straight into the kitchen, ignoring everyone, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on Haley. He saw the red mark on her face. The temperature in the room dropped to absolute 0. Alexander didn't run to her. He walked slowly, methodically toward Gabriel Rossi. Gabriel fell to his knees. He didn't argue. He didn't try to run. He just dropped to the dirty kitchen floor, bowing his head. "Mr. Thorne," Gabriel wept. "Please." Alexander stopped in front of Gabriel. He didn't look down at him. He looked at his daughter. "Did he do that?" Alexander asked, his voice calm, quiet, and terrifying. Haley nodded. Alexander turned his gaze to Gabriel. "You touched my daughter." "I didn't know!" Gabriel screamed, tears streaming down his face. "She was just a waitress. She stole my watch." "She doesn't need your watch," Alexander said softly. "She could buy your entire bloodline with her allowance." Suddenly one of the tactical officers walked in from the dining room. "Sir, we found the watch. It was in Mr. Rossi's jacket pocket. It had slipped through a hole in the lining." The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush bones. Gabriel froze. He slowly looked up at Alexander. It was in my pocket?" Alexander Thorne smiled. It was not a nice smile. "You slapped my daughter," Alexander whispered, leaning down, "over a mistake you made." Alexander straightened up and tapped his cane on the floor. "Take him," Alexander commanded his men, "and burn everything he owns." As 2 massive guards dragged a screaming Gabriel away, Alexander turned to Haley. The terrifying mask fell away, replaced by the face of a worried father. He reached out and gently touched the red mark on her cheek. "I told you the service industry was too rough for you, Tesoro," he said gently. "Are you ready to come home, now?" Haley looked at her father, then at the stunned faces of her co-workers, who were staring at her as if she were an alien. "Yeah, Dad," she whispered. "I think I quit." The ride back to the estate was suffocatingly silent. The convoy consisted of 5 armored SUVs, with Haley and her father, Alexander Sterling, sitting in the middle vehicle. The windows were tinted so dark that the city lights outside were nothing but blurred streaks of gold and red. Haley sat with her hands folded in her lap, still wearing her waitress uniform, though the apron had been discarded on the floor of the car. The smell of stale coffee and table cleaner that clung to her clothes felt violently out of place against the pristine, cream-coloured leather of the Bentley. "You look thin," Alexander said, breaking the silence. He didn't look at her. He was staring straight ahead, his hands resting on the head of his cane. "I'm fine, Dad," Haley replied, her voice small. "Fine?" Alexander scoffed, a dry, humourless sound. "You were serving scotch to men who wouldn't hesitate to sell you for parts. You were living in a studio apartment in the East End with a broken lock on the front door. My intelligence team told me you were eating instant noodles 5 nights a week." Haley stiffened. "You were watching me. You promised you wouldn't." "I promised I wouldn't interfere," Alexander corrected, turning his steel-grey eyes toward her. "I never promised I would stop protecting you. I am Alexander Sterling. I have enemies in every shadow. Did you really think I would let my only daughter walk the streets unprotected? I had agents in that restaurant every night. Mr. Henderson was on my payroll." Haley's mouth fell open. "Henderson? The manager who was too scared to speak up for me?" "He was instructed to intervene only if your life was in immediate danger. He failed to act fast enough tonight," Alexander said coldly. "He has already been dealt with." Haley looked away, a lump forming in her throat. This was why she had left. The control, the absolute, suffocating power that her father wielded. She had wanted to be normal. She had wanted to be Haley, the aspiring painter, not Haley Sterling, the heiress to the biggest criminal empire on the East Coast. But tonight, the illusion had shattered. Gabriel Rossi had shattered it with a single slap. "What will happen to Gabriel?" Haley asked quietly. Alexander adjusted his cuff. "The Rossi family has been a thorn in my side for a decade. They were getting too loud, too reckless. Gabriel gave me the excuse I needed to sanitize the city." Sanitize. By morning, the Rossi organization will cease to exist. Their assets are being frozen, their territories absorbed, and their leadership retired. Alexander reached over and patted Haley's hand. His skin was dry and cool. "You don't need to worry about monsters anymore, Tesoro. You're back in the castle now." The car slowed as it approached the massive iron gates of the Sterling estate. It was a sprawling compound located on a private island, just off the city limits, connected by a single guarded bridge. High walls topped with sensors and cameras surrounded a property that looked more like a fortress than a home. As the convoy pulled up to the main entrance, a team of staff was already waiting. Maids in uniforms, guards with earpieces, and the head of house staff, Mrs. Higgins. Haley stepped out of the car, her legs feeling like jelly. "Welcome home, Miss Haley," Mrs. Higgins said, bowing her head. "We have prepared a bath and a hot meal." Haley looked at the massive marble staircase, the crystal chandeliers, the priceless art on the walls. It was beautiful, but to her, it looked like a prison. "I'm tired," Haley whispered. "I just want to sleep." "Go," Alexander said, waving a hand. "Rest. Tomorrow we begin your reintegration. No more aprons. No more serving. You are a Sterling. It's time you remembered what that means." Haley walked up the stairs, feeling the weight of her name settling back onto her shoulders like a lead cloak. She went to her old room, a suite larger than her entire apartment, and locked the door. She stripped off the uniform and threw it into the trash can. She stood under the scalding hot water of the shower, scrubbing her cheek where Gabriel had hit her, trying to wash away the feeling of helplessness. But as she closed her eyes, she didn't see Gabriel. She saw her father's face, the calm, terrifying look he had before he ordered a man's destruction. She had saved herself from one monster by calling another, and now she owed the devil a debt. 2 weeks passed. The fall of the Rossi family was the only thing the news talked about, though they called it a gangland consolidation and a series of unfortunate disappearances. Gabriel Rossi was never seen again. Rumors in the underworld said he was sent to a black site in Siberia, but Haley knew better than to ask. Life at the Sterling estate was a gilded routine. Haley was woken up at 8 a.m., served breakfast on the terrace, and then ushered into meetings with stylists, tutors, and social coordinators. Her father was determined to reintroduce her to high society at the upcoming winter gala, but Haley felt like she was suffocating. She missed her art. She missed the smell of turpentine and the freedom of a blank canvas. Her father had built her a state-of-the-art studio in the East Wing, but it felt sterile. There was no life there. "I need to go out," Haley announced one morning over breakfast. Alexander didn't look up from his newspaper. "No. I'm not asking, Dad. I need supplies. Specific paints I can only get at the shop in the arts district. And I want to get coffee, a real coffee, not this stuff the chef makes." "The chef is Michelin-starred," Alexander noted dryly, "and it is not safe. There is chatter." "Chatter?" Alexander sighed, folding the paper. Gabriel Rossi had a brother, Stefano. He was exiled to Europe 5 years ago because he was too violent even for the family business. Intelligence suggests he has returned to the States. He blames us for the collapse of his empire. "I can't stay locked in here forever." Haley slammed her hand on the table. Alexander studied her for a moment. He saw the fire in her eyes, the same fire her mother had possessed. He knew he couldn't break her spirit, or she would run away again. And this time, he might not find her before Stefano did. "Fine," Alexander said. "You may go out, but not alone, and not with the standard house guards. They are too slow for you." He snapped his fingers. The heavy oak doors of the dining room opened. A man walked in. He was tall, over 6'3", with broad shoulders that strained against a black tactical shirt. He had dark, messy hair and a jawline that looked like it could cut glass. But it was his eyes that caught Haley off guard. They were dark brown, almost black, and completely empty of warmth. He had a faint scar running through his left eyebrow. He didn't bow. He didn't smile. He walked with a lazy, dangerous confidence and stopped a few feet from the table. "Haley," Alexander said, gesturing to the man. "This is Cole. He is the former head of a Tier 1 Spec Ops unit. He has operated in war zones you haven't even heard of. He is your new shadow." Haley looked at Cole. Cole looked at Haley. His gaze was judgmental. He looked at her perfectly styled hair, her silk robe, her manicured nails, and he didn't hide his disdain. To him, she was just another spoiled princess he had to babysit. "I don't need a babysitter," Haley snapped. "I'm not a babysitter," Cole said. His voice was deep, rough like gravel. "I'm a shield. You stay behind me. You live. You wander off. You die. Simple." "I don't like your tone," Haley said, crossing her arms. "I'm not paid to be liked," Cole replied flatly. "I'm paid to keep your pulse moving." "Cole is the best," Alexander interrupted, standing up. "He answers only to me. If he says you don't go somewhere, you don't go. If he says you run, you run. Do you understand?" Haley glared at her father, then at Cole. "Fine, let's go to the art store." Cole checked his watch. "You have 10 minutes to get dressed. Wear something you can run in. No heels." "Excuse me?" 9 minutes, Cole said, turning his back on her and walking towards the door. Haley stood there, fuming. She had traded a violent boss for a controlling father, and now she had an arrogant bodyguard who thought he was the general of her life. She stormed upstairs to change. She put on combat boots and jeans, just to spite him. The drive to the city was tense. Cole drove a black armored SUV. He checked the mirrors constantly. He didn't turn on the radio. He didn't make small talk. "So," Haley said, trying to break the ice, mostly to annoy him. "What's your last name?" "Need to know," Cole said. "Is Cole your first name or your last name?" "Does it matter?" "It matters if I have to spend every waking minute with you," Haley huffed. "Why are you so unpleasant? I didn't ask for you to be here." Cole glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "You think this is a game, princess? You think Stefano Rossi is a fairy tale villain? He flays people for fun. Your father burned down his legacy. Stefano is coming for blood, and you are the easiest target." "I'm unpleasant because distraction gets people killed." Haley fell silent. She looked out the window. She realized then that the slap in the restaurant wasn't the end of the drama. It was just the opening bell. They arrived at the art supply store. Cole cleared the perimeter before letting her out. He followed her through the aisles, looming over her while she picked out tubes of oil paint. "Hurry up," he muttered. "Too many windows in here." "Art takes time," Haley retorted, examining a brush. Suddenly Cole's hand shot out, grabbing her arm and yanking her behind a shelf of canvases. "Hey!" Haley protested. "Quiet," Cole hissed, his hand hovering near the gun concealed under his jacket. He was staring at the street through the front window. A black van had just idled across the street. The side door slid open just an inch. "We're leaving," Cole said low. "Back door, now." "But I haven't paid." "Forget the paint." Cole shoved her toward the emergency exit. They burst into the alleyway just as the front window of the store shattered under a hail of automatic gunfire. The sound of shattering glass and gunfire was deafening. Haley screamed as Cole tackled her to the wet pavement of the alleyway, covering her body with his own. Debris and plaster rained down around them. "Move!" Cole roared, hauling her to her feet. He didn't look like the bored bodyguard anymore. He was a machine. He dragged her down the alley, his gun drawn in his right hand, his left hand gripping her jacket so hard it hurt. "They found us!" Cole shouted into his earpiece. "Ambush at the Arts District. Sector 4. I need extraction." Static crackled in his ear. "Jammer," Cole cursed. "They're blocking the signal. We're on our own." 3 men in ski masks turned the corner of the alley, raising submachine guns. Haley froze. Cole didn't. He pushed Haley behind a dumpster and opened fire. Bang, bang, bang. 3 shots, controlled, precise. 2 men dropped instantly. The third scrambled for cover. "Stay down," Cole ordered Haley. "I can help," Haley yelled, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. "You can help by not getting shot." Cole suppressed the third attacker, then grabbed Haley again. "We have to get to the subway station. It's underground. Too many crowds for them to spray and pray. Run!" They sprinted out of the alley and onto the busy main street. Panic had set in. Civilians were screaming and running in all directions, confused by the gunshots. This chaos was their cover. Cole navigated the crowd like a shark, shoving people aside, pulling Haley along. They ducked into the subway entrance just as a black van screeched onto the sidewalk, tearing through a newsstand. They vaulted the turnstiles and ran down the escalator. "Who are they?" Haley gasped, her lungs burning. "Stefano's hit squad," Cole said, scanning the platform. "Mercenaries, high end. They knew exactly where we were. You have a leak in your house." Haley felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold subway air. A leak? The subway train arrived with a screech of brakes. Cole shoved her inside just as the doors were closing. He stood in front of the glass, scanning the platform as the train pulled away. "We're safe for a minute," Cole said, finally holstering his weapon. He looked at her. His face was grim, but there was a flicker of something else in his eyes. Respect? Or maybe just relief. "You run fast for a rich girl." "I was a waitress," Haley panted, leaning against the metal pole. "I walked 10 miles a shift." Cole checked the magazine of his gun. "We can't go back to the estate. If they knew we were at the art store, they might be watching the roads back to the island. They want to intercept us. So where do we go?" "I have a safe house," Cole said. "Off the grid. No digital footprint. We go there, we regroup, and I find a way to contact your father on a secure line." The train ride took 20 minutes. They got off in a gritty industrial district, far from the polished towers of the city centre. Cole led her through a maze of warehouses until they reached a nondescript steel door. He punched in a code, and they slipped inside. The safe house was a converted loft. It was sparse, a cot, a table, a massive rack of weapons, and a wall of monitors. Cole locked the heavy steel door and engaged 3 deadbolts. "Sit!" he commanded, pointing to a chair. He went to a mini-fridge and tossed her a bottle of water. Haley caught it. Her hands were shaking. "Did you kill those men?" "Yes," Cole said simply, pulling off his tactical vest. Underneath, his black t-shirt was stuck to his skin with sweat. It was them or you. I chose you. He walked over to a computer terminal and started typing furiously. The jammer is local to the van, so I should be able to get a signal out from here. Damn it. What? Haley asked, standing up. The network is down. Not just my comms. The city's cellular grid is experiencing a temporary outage. Cole turned to look at her. Stefano isn't just a thug. He's working with someone who has cyber capabilities. This is a coordinated siege. Haley walked over to the window, peering through the blinds. Why? Why go to all this trouble for me? Because you're the only thing Alexander Sterling loves, Cole said, his voice softer now. Stefano wants to trade you, your life for his brother's freedom and his territory back. Haley turned around, her eyes hardening. I won't be a bargaining chip. I spent my whole life hiding from this world. I'm not going to let some psychopath put me back in a box. Cole looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. He saw the waitress who had stood up to Gabriel Rossi. Good, Cole said, a small, dangerous smile touching his lips, because I don't plan on surrendering. Suddenly the power in the loft cut out. The monitors went black. The lights died. Haley gasped. Stay still, Cole whispered in the darkness. A red laser dot appeared on the center of Haley's chest. Cole moved faster than humanly possible. He tackled her to the ground just as a high-caliber bullet punched through the wall, obliterating the chair she had been standing next to. Sniper, Cole hissed. They found us. How the hell did they find us? My phone, Haley realized, reaching into her pocket. I still have my old phone, the one I called my dad with. Cole grabbed the phone from her hand and smashed it against the floor, shattering it. They tracked the GPS. We have to move, now! But as they crawled toward the back exit, the sound of heavy boots surrounded the building. Come out, little princess! A voice boomed from a megaphone outside. It was a voice dripping with madness. Stefano, we have the building surrounded. Send out the girl, and the bodyguard dies quickly. Resist, and I'll peel him apart while you watch. Cole looked at Haley in the dark. He checked his gun. He had one magazine left. I can't fight an army, Cole whispered. Not with one clip. Haley looked at the weapon rack on the wall. She grabbed a Glock 19. Cole's eyes widened. What are you doing? Put that down. My father didn't just teach me how to paint, Haley said, her voice trembling but determined. She racked the slide back with a practiced motion, checking the chamber. He insisted I learn how to shoot before he let me leave home 3 years ago. I shot expert level at the range. She looked at Cole. You're the shield, right? Well, I'm the sword. Let's get out of here. Cole stared at her for a second, then nodded. Okay, princess, on 3. 3, Cole whispered. He kicked the back door open, not into the alley, but into the adjoining garage of the warehouse. It was a calculated risk. The mercenaries expected them to run into the street or the alleyway, funneling them into kill zones. They didn't expect them to go deeper into the industrial trap. Inside the garage sat a dusty, tarp-covered 1969 Mustang, a restoration project Cole had been working on during his downtime. Get in, Cole barked, ripping the tarp off. Passenger side, keep your head down. Haley dove into the leather seat. The smell of old oil and gasoline filled her nose. Cole hot-wired the ignition. He didn't need a key. He had installed a kill switch under the dash. The engine roared to life, a guttural scream of American muscle that echoed off the concrete walls. Hold on, Cole warned. He threw the car into reverse. He didn't aim for the garage door. He aimed for the brick wall that separated the garage from the alleyway where the van was idling. Crash! The rear of the Mustang smashed through the aged, crumbling brickwork, showering the alley with dust and debris. The impact sent the mercenary van skidding sideways. Cole shifted gears, slamming on the gas. The Mustang surged forward, tires smoking, tearing out of the garage and onto the main road. They're behind us! Haley yelled, looking back. 2 black SUVs had peeled off from the perimeter and were giving chase. Let them come, Cole gritted his teeth, his eyes glued to the rearview mirror. He took a sharp left, drifting the heavy car around a corner with terrifying precision. "Can you shoot out a tire?" Haley gripped the Glock. Her hands were sweating, but her mind was strangely clear. "I can try." "Don't try." "Do." Cole swerved to avoid a civilian car. "Lean out. Aim low. Squeeze, don't pull." Haley rolled down the window. The wind whipped her hair across her face. She leaned out, the cold night air biting her skin. Behind them, the lead SUV was closing in, a gunman leaning out of the sunroof with an assault rifle. Bullets sparked off the pavement around them. Haley took a breath, held it, and fired. Once, twice, 3 times. The front right tire of the lead SUV exploded. The vehicle swerved violently, losing control at 80 miles per hour. It flipped, rolling over the median and crashing into a street lamp, effectively blocking the second SUV. Haley pulled herself back inside, her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She looked at the gun in her hand, then at Cole. Cole looked over at her. A slow, genuine grin spread across his face. It transformed him. He didn't look like a statue anymore. He looked alive. "Remind me never to piss you off, Princess," he said. "Don't call me Princess," Haley breathed, engaging the safety on the gun. They drove in silence for another 10 minutes, weaving through the labyrinth of the city's underbelly to ensure they weren't being followed. Cole finally pulled the car into a secluded area under an old suspension bridge, killing the engine. The silence that followed was heavy, filled only by the ticking of the cooling engine. Cole turned to her. "You did good. You saved us." "We're not safe yet," Haley said, her voice trembling slightly as the adrenaline faded. "Stefano knows we're alive. He knows we're running, and we can't go home because of the leak." "About that," Cole said, his expression darkening. He pulled a small, ruggedized tablet from under the seat. "While we were in the loft, I ran a trace on the jammer signal. It wasn't just blocking us. It was broadcasting a frequency to a private server. I managed to ping the IP address before the power cut. And the server belongs to a shell company, registered in the Caymans, but the login credentials..." Cole hesitated. "The access logs show a user logged in from the Sterling estate, from the West Wing." Haley felt the blood drain from her face. "The West Wing? That's Victor's office. Victor Vance, her father's oldest friend, the consigliere, the man who had bounced Haley on his knee when she was a baby, the man who had given her her first set of paints." "It can't be Victor," Haley whispered. "He's family. In this life, family is just the people who know where to stab you to make it hurt the most," Cole said grimly. "Victor has been pushing your father to expand into narcotics for years. Alexander refused. Stefano Rossi deals almost exclusively in narcotics. If Victor helps Stefano take out the Rossi heir, and destabilize Alexander, then Victor steps in to save the organization." Haley finished the thought, horror dawning on her. "He takes over, and he partners with Stefano." "Exactly," Cole nodded. "If we go back to the estate, we're walking into a trap. Victor controls the house security detail. He'll let us in, and we'll never walk out." "So what do we do?" Haley asked. She felt tears pricking her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She was done crying. "We can't run forever." Cole looked at her, his dark eyes intense. He reached out and brushed a stray lock of hair from her forehead. His touch was surprisingly gentle, a stark contrast to the violence of the night. "We don't run," Cole said softly. "We finish it." "How?" "Stefano is operating out of the city. He's too arrogant to leave until he has you. The trace on the jammer also gave me a location for his command center. He's at the Helios construction site." "The unfinished skyscraper downtown?" "Yeah. It's isolated, high ground. Perfect for a paranoid boss." Cole checked his weapon. "We go there. We cut the head off the snake. We get proof of Victor's betrayal, and we bring it to your father." "Just the 2 of us?" Haley asked. "Against an army?" Cole smirked, reloading his magazine. "I'm a Tier 1 operator, And you're apparently a sharpshooter. I like our odds." Haley looked at him. In the dim light of the dashboard, she saw the scars on his hands, the weariness in his eyes, and the fierce loyalty that lay beneath. She realized suddenly that she felt safer in this beat-up Mustang with this dangerous man than she ever had in her father's mansion. "Okay," Haley said, gripping the Glock. "Let's go get him." The Helios Tower was a skeleton of steel rising 50 stories into the freezing night air. It was a monument to stalled ambition, now serving as Stefano Rossi's fortress. "We split up," Cole whispered, checking his final magazine in the shadow of a cement mixer. His face was pale, the blood loss from the earlier ambush taking its toll. "I'll draw their fire at the main elevator. You take the service stairs. Flank them." "That's a suicide mission for you," Haley argued, her grip tightening on the Glock 19. "I'm the shield, remember?" Cole gave her a tired, jagged smile. "Go." He broke cover, firing 2 controlled shots into the air. The mercenaries on the mezzanine shouted and opened fire, their muzzle flashes illuminating the dark concrete. While chaos erupted, Haley slipped into the stairwell, climbing the final 10 flights with lungs that burned like fire. When she reached the penthouse level, a vast, open slab of concrete with no walls, the wind roared, drowning out her footsteps. In the center, illuminated by a single floodlight, sat Stefano Rossi, and standing beside him, looking impeccably dressed in a grey suit, was Victor, her father's oldest friend, the man she called Uncle. "She's persistent, I'll give her that," Victor shouted over the wind, handing Stefano a glass of wine. "But Alexander is too old to hold the territory. We need the drug routes, and your father was too stubborn to allow it." Haley stepped out from behind a steel girder. "So you sold me out for heroin shipments, Victor?" Victor spun around, shock registering on his face. "Haley, you shouldn't be here." Before he could signal the guards, Cole burst from the elevator shaft on the opposite side, dropping one mercenary before taking a bullet to the shoulder. He collapsed behind a pallet of bricks, pinned down. "Enough!" Stefano roared, grabbing a submachine gun. "Kill the spare! Bring me the girl!" Victor pulled a pistol and aimed it at Cole's exposed head. "Drop the gun, Haley, or your watchdog dies right now." Haley froze. The wind whipped her hair across her face. She looked at Cole, bleeding and cornered. "Put it down," Victor commanded, his voice dripping with false pity. "Go back to being a waitress, honey. This world isn't for you." Haley slowly lowered her weapon, her eyes locking onto Victor's. "I learned a lot waiting tables, Victor, like how to spot a cheap tipper and how to deal with trash." She didn't drop the gun. She raised it in a blur of motion. Bang! The shot was perfect. It didn't hit Victor in the chest. It hit the hand holding the gun. Victor screamed, dropping his weapon and stumbling back toward the open edge of the floor. He lost his footing on the slick concrete. His arms windmilled wildly, his eyes meeting Haley's for one terrified second before he tipped backward. He fell into the darkness without a sound. Stefano spun around, raising his rifle, but Cole was already moving. Despite his wound, Cole tackled Stefano, slamming him into the floor. The rifle skittered away over the edge. Haley walked over to where Stefano lay dazed. She aimed the Glock at his knee. "This is for the slap," she said coldly. Bang! Stefano shrieked in agony as his kneecap shattered. Moments later, the roar of rotors shook the building. A black helicopter marked with the Sterling crest rose from the abyss, hovering level with the penthouse. The side door slid open to reveal Alexander Sterling, leaning on his cane, flanked by his elite guard. He looked at the empty space where Victor had stood. He looked at the bleeding Cole. Finally, he looked at his daughter, who stood tall amidst the carnage, the smoking gun still in her hand. Alexander stepped onto the roof. He didn't ask what happened. He simply walked up to Haley and placed a hand on her shoulder. "The car is waiting, Tesoro," he said softly, looking at her with a newfound respect. "It's time to go home. The city is yours now." From a trembling waitress in the Sapphire Lounge to the ruthless queen of the Sterling Empire, Hayley's journey proves that sometimes the quietest people hold the loudest power. Gabriel Rossi thought he was slapping a helpless victim, but he accidentally woke up a dragon. With the traitor Victor gone and the Rossi family destroyed, the city now belongs to Hayley. She is no longer running from her legacy. She is embracing it, with Cole standing faithfully by her side, not just as a shield, but as a partner. The shy girl who served coffee is gone, and in her place stands a woman who knows exactly what she is worth. I hope you enjoyed this intense Mafia romance story. If you loved Hayley's transformation and the chemistry between her and Cole, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow and lets me know you want more stories like this. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you'll never miss an upload. What do you think happens next? Do Hayley and Cole finally admit their feelings? Or does a new enemy rise from Europe? Let me know in the comments below if you want a part 2. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.